The following program was made possible thanks to the generous support of our Kickstarter backers.
Well, first Holmes was born, then he got tubular and radical, yeah.
Sup, Holmes?
Beware your host, Jonathan Holmes.
Thanks so much, Sinistar. Sinistar, I would love for you to get a makeover by the greatest, in my opinion, and sorry, Joachim Sandberg, who I also love. But Simon, your remakes, your recreations of classic video game characters are simply fantastic. Thank you so much for making them. I can stare at your Rescue Rangers one for literally days and look at new little details. You are Simon Andersen, Snake Pixel on Twitter. Thank you so much for being on the show. How are you doing today?
I am doing pretty well. I've
Good to hear.
had a good night's sleep for once, so
Yeah?
I haven't slept properly for the past, 3 weeks since I came to Texas, so I'm finally rested.
You were just at SXSW, is that right?
South by South, yeah.
Yeah. How did the show go?
Well, a little unexpected. We have so we were part of the Austin Developers Group, which is a little strange because our company is Norwegian, but they made an exception because we have two people from Austin that have worked on the game. So we were sort of an Austin company. So I sat there and drew pixel art live, and people came by and didn't understand what we were doing, and then we put the game up and people were happy. So good stuff.
The game being Owlboy, the game you've been working on, it seems like, for the better part of this decade, I think.
Unfortunately, yes. It's been, what is it now, 7 years, I think?
Has it really? My goodness.
Yes.
And people still want it. People play it at shows, and you still get a positive reaction. It's still new to people. How has that felt to see that, regardless of how much time goes by, Owlboy still resonates with people?
It is an interesting feeling. The game itself, I mean, it has a bit of a steep learning curve because it's not just, basic platforming and jumping around and that kind of a thing. You also have this second layer of flying. So it's not necessarily a game that's easy to show off at show floors because people need to learn it as they go. So we always want to show more stuff, and then we end up showing the tutorial levels because it's the only thing that people can pick up. But it's so fun when our tutorials actually work. Most people actually catch it pretty fast. And I say it every time we go out to a show, like, this is going to be useless. No one cares about Owlboy anymore. We have to do this big splash at some point when we're close to release. And then we go there, and then it's like, I've been following your game for 5 years, or I've never heard of this. It reminds me of, okay, what are the common examples that people give me? Miyazaki movies, Wind Waker, basically everything positive that I didn't copy. So,
well, you are from Norway, is that right?
That is correct.
And what were some of the influences on Owlboy? To me, it does have a very European feel to it, but at the same time, you get a sense of Japanese pixel art tradition in there too. It's a wonderful mix. That's how it feels anyway.
I don't think I can pinpoint something specifically, but I have to ask you what you mean about European feel, because I haven't been able to pinpoint something that feels European. And from an American standpoint, I kind of want to hear what you.
Oh, sure. This, I hope, doesn't sound like too gross of a generalization, but I've known a lot of American artists and I've known a lot of European artists in my life, and all the European artists I know have this like passion and love for beautifully detailed backgrounds, like where an American artist might be like, oh, it's simple and it's clear and there's 3 lines of shading, and you get dimension from it. The European guy, the French guy, the Norwegian guy, the Swedish guy will be like, and then there will be a twinkle in the twinkle, and then there'll be shine like in the shine, and the shadow will have a shadow. So just like the lushness and the beauty and the attention to detail that you have, especially in that friggin' WarioWare. Like, that's a perfect example. Like, WarioWare by Nintendo looks great, But your WarioWare is like literally like glowing and has the sense of depth, even though it's a 2D image, is so strong, and that feels very European to me.
Well, I do get a lot of comments on the detail level on the stuff I do, but um, I suppose it's more how I view the art rather than some sort of personal goal.
Hmm.
I suppose I can answer both those questions in one, because you asked me what the influence for Owlboy was, and it wasn't. I didn't have one particular source. It was I don't remember when it was, but I think I did 3D studies when I was 19, and I was going to get a big game job and work for a company and all that. And then the Wii came out, and everything was moving towards this big revolution. At least that was what people were advertising.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no revolution for pixel art. And I'd been doing pixel art my entire life. I mean, my mom did cross stitching, so I basically had like, pixel art books up to the ears. I had, my dad was one of the first people in Tromsø, the old town I lived in, to have a proper computer, a home computer. So I'd been growing up with that for years, and I felt like, well, I have to do something that presents pixel art in the best way it possibly can. And this was before the entire indie wave, so there was no incentive for me to do pixel art simply because I could do 3D. I could get a job with that.
Hmm.
But then I thought back, and I thought of what kind of game concept works better in 3D. No, 2D. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought of Kid Icarus, because that game. There had been speculations that Nintendo was going to do a 3D version of that. This was way before Uprising came out.
Sure.
And people had been discussing this thing like, oh, it's going to be so weird walking around in 3D because you have all these platforms and all that kind of a thing. So I just thought, in 2D you can see more when you fly, because when you're flying around, you see what you bump into and you can kind of move around stuff. And so when I started working on Owlboy, it was basically this is how I can present pixels in the best way I possibly can. And of course, as a 19-year-old, I mean, that was the best thing I came up with.
Mm.
But aside from that, it was a lot of weird influences. Super Mario 3, I thought of a way to reverse the Tanuki suit, when you press the button and you kind of glide down.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, how about you reverse that and you can fly instead?
Huh.
So that became the flying ability, and then I thought, how about you can find new continents when you fly? And I'll disclose this right off the bat. My two favorite series of all time, you can ask me any question and I'll know it, is Zelda and Mega Man.
Huh.
So naturally, I've mixed in elements from those two. But I thought, how about instead of you having a silent protagonist, you have a literal mute as the main character? So we've designed a game where the character literally can't talk. So I thought, okay, we have a lot of fun elements there. But in terms of the look, I don't think I can point you to anything in particular that I studied, because I don't know how many people know this, but I've traveled basically most of the world, excluding South America and Africa. I've been in every country in Europe. I've been in most of Asia. I've been in the US. And so I've seen a lot of the things that people usually base their stuff off.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually never play games to get influences. I'm usually influenced by the idea of things. So have you ever played a game and when you actually play it, it's like, oh, so that's how it is. Well, now that sort of magic is a little ruined for me.
Sure, absolutely. reading game magazines, thinking about games. You invent them in your head before you get to play them, and sadly, the more excited I am for a game, the higher chance I'm going to be disappointed by it in the end. So yeah, I absolutely know that feeling.
I remember I had a game magazine called Power Player a few years back, and there was an image for both Chrono Trigger and for Final Fantasy VI. I remember that very specifically because they had two articles, one on each page, and in my head, those two are the same game.
Oh,
because you had one image which was a guy walking around in Narsh, the first, however it's pronounced, I don't even know, where the whole coal village thing with all the steam pipes and that kind of thing. And then on the other picture, you had working on Robo in the future thing. And in my head, there was this weird world where you could walk around with steam pipes and fix robots and all that kind of a thing. And of course, I love both those games, but those two images by themselves kind of created this new universe for me. And it's sort of how I approach anything I make, I suppose.
Sure. And for a lot of people, that's where Owlboy sits in our minds. It's like we've been thinking about it for like 5 years, and I know what I think is going to happen in it, but I'm sure that's not what you have designed. I'm going to be surprised when I eventually get to play it. But yeah, why do you think it is that Owlboy has remained in this perpetually being created? And I don't know if you've had to go back to the drawing board and redo parts of it, because to work on a game for so long, I imagine your skill set has grown over the years.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think the best example I could come up with off the top of my head is that the first boss became the second boss. And then he didn't become a boss at all. And that incarnation of him has been redesigned 4 times.
Oh my goodness. Huh. So have you done a game's worth of Owlboy content over the course of the development of it, but because you've grown and your vision has changed and the team members have changed, you've actually gone back and reworked it? Is that the case?
Oh, absolutely. Do you remember the launch we were going to do in 2011?
I think so. Yeah. And at that point, it had been around 3 or 4 years in development, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, something close to that. I've lost track of time at this point.
Sure.
But the idea back then was that we were going to travel here to Austin, Texas, and then finish development. And we were all set on that, and we made our demo and everything. And then when we released the demo, we got a ton of feedback on it, and we realized that this isn't going to be big enough. It's not going to be what people expect, and we could do much better. So what we ended up doing was we added a ton of levels. We added free roaming areas because we felt like that's what we wanted to have in there. A ton of new dungeons. Our story improved. We basically gutted the entire first village and built it up again from scratch. And then after a while, we realized that a lot of these things are ridiculously heavy to add into something. And so we cut a lot of things, and then we've distilled a lot of things. Essentially, what's happened is, Owlboy was the first commercial project we started as a studio, which as young as we were, that was probably not our smartest choice. But at the same time, we have learned so much at this point that how do I put this? We released a little game called Savant Ascent here. I think it was last year, and that was sort of our little experiment on how good we are at what we are at this point, because we managed to make that game in 5 weeks. And
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
5 weeks.
That's for people who haven't played it. It's a fast-paced elevator shooter. I don't know if that's how you defined it, but you're moving up and you're very fun game. It's out on Steam, easy to pick up and play, beautiful artwork. 5 weeks, but there's been iterations of it since then, right? You've added to it. Yeah.
So we did it in 5 weeks, and then we ended up spending about a half a year doing corrections and fixing things and doing ports and all that kind of a thing. And then because people were absolutely 100% begging us for it, we added the Void update to that, which added another their boss battle. And the main reason we did that was, one, we were really tired, and we were going to take a summer vacation, and our summer vacations are to work. So we decided to give ourselves more work. And the second thing was, I'm the cover artist for Savant, the musician. We know him personally. He's an awesome guy. But he had just released an album called Protoss, which was a throwback to his old stuff before he did dubstep, which was all this, 80s kind of stuff that sounded like the Turtles mixed with, I don't know, really cheesy pop, and it was amazing. So we just kind of had to do it.
And many people, I'm sure, have said, if you could make this game, why didn't you just make an Owlboy instead? Where's my Owlboy? Whenever a developer makes a game, while they have this larger project looming in the background, sometimes they meet resentment. Though I'm taking back my statement, because just about everybody I know who is excited for Owlboy, and it's quite a few people, they seem really patient. Like, unlike people who are still mad at poor Joachim Sandberg, who hasn't done the Iconoclast yet, that's been sitting in the background, and people are waiting for Daisuke Amaya to make another cave story. They can get kind of bitter about that. With Owlboy, it seems like the fans are relatively patient. Has that been your experience, though, or is that just how it looks to me?
Just as an aside, before we jump on that, I really hope people don't give Joachim too much flack. He's been working seriously hard, and I think he's burnt himself out a bit. And if people could give him a little bit more patience, I think that would go a long way for him.
Absolutely. And it's not like he's not doing other stuff. He ends up working on, it seems like Way Forward is constantly trying to contract him to do animation work. He's a very hard guy.
They do that for all of us.
You've worked on Way Forward 2 games too, right? Is that
correct? Yeah. I think the first one I did was my first commercial project was Contra 4.
Oh, really? I wasn't aware of that. Cool. What did you work on in that?
Oh, I did some basic rock animations and things. So I was also the guy that made the original pitch for DuckTales Remastered.
No way.
No, really. It was what was it? It was supposed to be a project done through a company called Other Ocean, and they pitched my mock-up to Capcom, and they took my concept and then pitched it back to Way Forward.
What? So was this before or after you did that Rescue Rangers art, which is everyone should?
Oh, this is way before that.
Really? Huh. Mm-hmm. So Another Ocean, Mike Mika, I think, works there. Probably pronounced his name wrong. He's been on the show. He did iDarb. He's worked on tons of stuff. He worked on the Little Nicky Game Boy Color game and stuff. So you were going to work with Other Ocean on a new DuckTales or a remastered DuckTales? Did you want to do a remake or a new game?
Well, I don't like remakes. I'll be perfectly honest, because I feel like you should always try to move forward. And if you do a remake of things, either it's going to be as good or it's going to be just an insult to the original. So what I wanted to do was I was going to do just a 16-bit version, because they were pretty dead set on having this be a remake. But I wanted to add multiplayer, and I wanted to do it where one was playing as Scrooge and the other one was playing as, what's his English name? Gloomgold?
Yeah. The evil Scrooge, like the Bizarro Scrooge.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah. I know him as Gulbrand Gråstein, so it's a little different. So the idea was that you're both collecting money as you're playing through the level, but sometimes you have to help each other out to get the money, or sometimes you have to betray each other to get the money. And then at the halfway point of each level, I mean, you would play the normal levels as they were in the game, but then as you have another player, another path will open up at about the halfway point, and then you'll get custom levels for multiplayer from there.
Ah, so it would be split screen, or how would that work?
Oh, it would be all on one screen.
Ah, gotcha. Cool. It sounds like a great idea. Was it inspired by your thoughts on capitalism and lust for gold? Because to me, I'm immediately struck by whenever you're like wanting the money that somebody else has, you see them as like this other. But in fact, like you're both in the business world, everyone's the same. They're all just trying to make money in the same way. So Scrooge and his other half are more similar than they are different, though they
Yeah, no
each
way.
other's enemies. Yeah, yeah.
Just a,
Yeah.
a random trivia fact, just while we're at it. The most popular comic in Norway for generations now has been Donald Duck.
Really?
Yeah, and I grew up with probably no one in the U.S. knows this, but there's an artist called Don Rosa. Don Rosa, I think. He took over for Carl. What is his name?
Barks?
Carl
Marks?
Burks.
Burks,
Carl
yeah.
Burks.
Some
Yeah,
Mhm.
he was one of the more famous artists. And then when Rosa took over, he did these. He was one of the only artists that did Donald Duck that had a consistent story and a timeline.
Mm.
So he did the Life of Scrooge, and he was one of the reasons I started to draw. So it was kind of I was naturally drawn towards doing a Scrooge project.
Sure, sure. And so you pitch it to Other Ocean, who then works with you to pitch it to Capcom? Is that what happened?
Well, it was kind of out of my hands. They were they got in touch with me at I think it was when we got our IGF nomination for Owlboy,
Mm-hmm.
and then they said, "Hey, we have this thing we're going to pitch. Can you be the artist for it?" And then I made this mock-up. I sent it to them, and then it just disappeared. And then all of a sudden, DuckTales Remasters emerges, and I'm like, I did that. What happened?
Ah, and I know the director of DuckTales Remastered, Austin Ivansmith. Great guy. You might know him too at Way Forward.
Possibly.
Yeah. He's a wonderful person. I'm sure he would have loved to do the concept you had and work with you on it. But from what I understand, that game had a lot of limitations put upon it, and they had to struggle to make it what it even was. Though personally, I love the pixel art style, love the hand drawn style they went with the game. But I would have loved to see your version of it. Do you think there's any chance you'll ever get to? I mean, you could revisit it for DuckTales Remastered 2, I suppose, or some other Disney Capcom collaboration. Would you want to kind of get back on that track with them if possible?
Well, that's sort of why I did the mock-up for Chip and Dale too.
Ah, and what
What
did
was it?
anything happen with that?
No, it never does. I mean, the essentially, I just I like making ideas based on what I would like to see for franchises I actually enjoy. But
Sure.
I'm not gonna make mock-ups of things that would work better in 3D because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like whatever I pitch, it should be realistic.
Sure.
So I had one for Chip and Dale 3 because I love that game. I had one for Wario Land because they need to frickin' make a new Wario Land, damn it.
Yeah, and you got a lot of fan response from that Wario Land one in particular. I posted it on Destructoid, and the comments just coming down, and people have this like hunger for a new Wario Land, and they're angry that the series seems to have been dropped, and that Nintendo's mostly focusing on the WarioWare version of Wario. So, did you actually pitch that to Nintendo? Did that happen?
I never did that myself, and the reason is if I'm gonna do it seriously, you have to have some leverage for that.
Mm,
D-Pad Studio, while we have sort of a reputation on us, if any investor is gonna pop in and look at our records, they're gonna see that we've released one game and then have had one development for 7 years. It's going to be difficult to make that pitch.
Is that really because you seem so much more prolific than that? I know you're working pretty consistently in D-Pad Studios. It's not like you could still exist if you weren't doing something, at least individuals, to have money keep coming in. You work in the industry pretty steadily. Is that right?
Oh, I never stopped working. The
Yeah, I didn't think so. So it's not
yeah,
as though you're not prolific. It's just that the studio itself doesn't look prolific. Is that the issue?
yeah, I suppose so. There's I mean, there was a guy, I don't remember who it was particular, but there was one guy saying it's ironic that it's your day off and you're writing about how you're still sitting in front of the computer drawing, uh, and it's essentially how it is every day. We don't do anything other than work.
Mm.
It's you mentioned how does it feel that your fan base is being so kind with you, and the thing is, I don't see much of that. Most of my experience of the world is sitting in my office and then thinking of more stuff that I can make or adding more stuff to Owlboy. So it's more of a constant thing, and the I can see how if you're a multi-million-dollar company and you want to send your assets to someone, then you probably want someone with a more consistent track record. Though I will say, if anyone contacts me about any other concepts that I've done, I mean Mega Man X9, Chip and Dale, Wario Land, Breath of Fire 7, I don't care. I will do it, and I will do it better than most people, and I can guarantee that.
Mega Man X9. I yelled at you years ago. We've only met in person one time, and you were tired. It was the end of a show. I was overexcited because that tends to be a chronic problem of mine. And I kind of like stuck up behind you, like, "Oh God, well boy, why don't you make a new Mega Man X9?" And you're like, "I would if I could. Why are you yelling at me?" So you actually did a concept for that? I never saw that. I'd love to hear more about that.
Oh yeah, it was actually when Mega Man Legends 3 got canceled. I decided, how about for April Fools, we make a fake Mega Man X9 trailer. I actually have it on YouTube. So I pitched it to some websites and no one picked up on it, probably because I said, hey, this is an April Fool's thing. If you want to post it, you can. And then it sort of just disappeared, but I have the entire concept planned out. I know all the bosses and everything. It's just I need to have the rights for it.
Wow. Mega Man, I've got a, weirdly enough, I have the Mega Man X book right here. Mega Man X, big influential series in my life. Though after X3, I got a little bit less excited about it. And I actually kind of weirdly liked X8 more than I thought I would. What would your concept for X9 be, though? Very excited to hear about this.
Oh, okay. Now we get into the good stuff. Okay, so here's my basic pitch for this. So I like a lot about what they've done with the later X series, but I don't like that you switch between 3 characters, because then you have less of a feature on focus on your main abilities. And I want to go back to what they did in X1, which was give you something to aspire to. So in X1, what happened was that you start out with a level, and then when you get to the end, you get to feel weak. You get punched in the face by this vile guy, and you're basically going to be destroyed. Then Zero comes along, shoots him in the face, and says, hey, you can be as strong as I am. And then you're on your way. And then the second thing you get is an upgrade, which lets you slide like he does. And all of a sudden you have this, holy crap, I can become as powerful as he is. And you've done all this without anyone telling you that you should become more powerful or any story bits or anything. You're just, I know that I want to be that guy. So essentially what I want to do is I want Zero to be there, and I kind of liked how they did it in X3, where you can kind of switch to Zero every once in a while. But I want it to be limited, just because I want him to seem strong. Because if you switch between 2 characters, then both are sort of equally weak, and there's no point in upgrading yourself if you can just use the more powerful one. And then I want to introduce another character that I haven't quite designed. that is essentially this general type person that is just massively more strong than you are.
Mm.
And let's say at the start of the game, I think if I remember correctly, after X8, X is a commander of sorts. I think
Was that
that's what it
command
is.
mission, or was that in? Trying to recall too, storyline wise. It's been a little while. Zero
Yes,
died, and then with undied, and then they brought Axel in, which always felt a little. I don't hate Axel, like so many people like resent him because he makes them feel weird because he's so different than. But he's not awful. He's got his charms. And did you like the ZX games actually?
Oh, hell yes, I love them.
What a ridiculous question. Does Capcom? So Capcom knows you exist, right? Have they ever talked to you? Has anything ever even come close to blossoming out of all this?
I've never had direct contact with Capcom, which is unfortunate because just about any series that they've got, I could handle.
Yeah.
I've recently, just for fun, I've been designing my own Breath of Fire game just because. Why are they doing Breath of Fire 6 like they are? It's like
and the graphics are not terrible on it, but it is a phone game, and it doesn't look like Breath of Fire 3 or 4 at all, which were some of the high points visually for the series, I think. But yeah, tell me about your Breath of Fire. What are you doing with that?
Well, I've already posted a bunch of character sketches for it, but I'm a big fan of Breath of Fire 4, and the pixel art is just gorgeous, and the character designer, I forget his name, I'm bad with names, but he is pretty much one of the biggest influences for the style that I use. His shape language is amazing. He uses very consistent colors for all his characters. It's very basic shapes for everything, and a very simple character trait. So I wanted to somehow capture that same feeling. Right now, the idea that I'm playing with is something like you're a prisoner in a sort of desert country. Nina, that angel wing girl kind of a thing, is now some sort of high monarch worshipped like a goddess thing, and she thinks she is one.
Huh.
But you have to help her escape her castle because something happens, and then you meet a girl with a giant helmet and a lizard that shapeshifts. I'm not even going to go into that too far.
And you're playing as Ryu, the blue-haired dragon protagonist to most of the series?
Naturally.
Yeah, very good. I'm just remembering now that a fan artist worked on that Mega Man X Street Fighter game, and it was okay. It was pretty good. It wasn't, in my opinion, something that looks as amazing as your work or as surprising, and it didn't grab core concepts and expand upon them the way your imagination just naturally seems to work. So, but there's a precedent of a fan game getting more or less made and then Capcom picking it up and running with it. At least that was Capcom a few years ago. Capcom, community-wise, they seem to have changed kind of for the worse of late, and they don't do quite as much stuff like that.
I think that's I can't quite tell what they're doing at the moment, simply because it seems like they're just trying to cut everything that had to do with Inafune. It seems like this is sort of like a grudge thing, and the Street Fighter thing. I mean, if you've played some of the fan games, for example, Mega Man Unlimited and that kind of a thing, there's a lot of good fan games out there. So the fact that one got picked up, I think it was just coincidence. They wanted to promote Street Fighter, and they wanted to seem like they still cared about the franchise.
Yeah. And
So
it was Capcom USA, I think, that was really driving that. The community guys there are true Capcom fans, at least. I don't think they're still there anymore, actually. And I think Christian Svensson was still there at that point. He's since left. These days, it does feel like it's sort of dried up. Son of a... Does it? Because I'm on the sidelines, like, just let him make the game. And that's for me. That's hard. For you, it must be impossible, knowing you could make these amazing games. And
it's frustrating because I'm not going to sit here and say that everything has to be some sort of retro pixel art kind of a thing. I treat pixel art as an art medium where I try to push it to the brink that it can have.
Mm-hmm.
If I was doing 3D, then I'd push that for as well as I could.
Sure.
But when it comes to Capcom's franchises, they have so much stuff locked up in the vault that, I mean, I could basically just make another iteration of any of this stuff and it would work. And if we wanted to add our own flavor to it, then of course we could. But it wouldn't be difficult. I mean, let's say, just off the top of my head, let's say Chippendale 3. If I were to do that, it's not difficult to see how you could easily add just more characters you can pick, different locations based on the various episodes. You could have, for example, a level based on that scene where you drive around in a giant mechanical dog. It's so easy.
Well, another thing I was thinking, for you to say it's so easy, like it would take me literally 6 months to do like half of, because I do a little pixel art on the side. God, it would be friggin' impossible for me to make a mock-up that you seem to be able to whip up in a day or two. I was actually, the other day I was walking my dog and I was thinking about Oprah Winfrey, and I was like, and she just wakes up every morning and she's like, "Yep, I'm still Oprah. I guess I'm just a millionaire. She's got her own network and I'm world famous." But to her, it's like normal now. And you're kind of the same. Like for you, you've been like one of the best pixel artists in the world, at least from what I've seen. And I study pixel artists. There's a lot of fantastic pixel artists of many different styles out there. So it's not necessarily competition, but you're pretty fantastic at this stuff, and you have been for a while. You just seem kind of used to it. You seem like the Oprah Winfrey of pixel art in a way.
I'll be completely honest. I'm not really sure what you're talking about.
Well, if I woke up and was suddenly you or suddenly Oprah and had all the like these incredible magic powers,
First thing you'd say was, "Now, where did all this hair come from?"
Yeah, that too. It's probably the first thing I'd notice. But yeah, you have this power that other people don't have. Are you constantly aware of the fact that you're one of the best in your field, or is it something that you don't take in that way?
I think I've heard maybe 2 or 3 people say something similar, and I think the first thing I could say is that I don't think I'm the best. I really don't. There's if you look back at the stuff, well around the subject Capcom did for their old fighting games, for example, the backgrounds for that, stuff that is coming out from Japan now, there's tons of people that I would consider masters that I'm not going to even compare myself to. And for that matter, I don't feel like I'm anyone special, honestly. The only times I hear people say that, "Oh, your art is amazing and it's great," is when I go to convention and some guy walks up to me and goes, "Oh, hey, I know who you are." Mostly when I'm home or with friends or someone, no one has any idea who I am. And if I am to be perfectly frank, most people at home don't really care either way. There's in fact, my parents are still telling me that I should quit my job and go back to working for some ad company instead of doing what I do.
What? And it's a very commonly held statement. Daisuke Amaya, he made Cave Story while he was working in like an office somewhere or something, and he's, when it comes to game design, incredible in my opinion. His pixel art, not as detailed as yours, but it carries a charm, of course. But he was taken for granted as well. It seems to happen all the time. Do you think after Owlboy, is this something that goes on in your head, that you're thinking after Owlboy hits, if it's big, then finally I'll be known and seen in that way? But at the same time, does that put all this added pressure on Owlboy to end up being this magnificent success. How does that work for you mentally?
I think you basically summed up my life just there. So I can give a quick summary of how things are.
Sure.
So I've been working on this game now for 7 years, and I've already had problems with depression before I started this. After we decided to expand on it, it seemed like this thing that would never end. And if we couldn't finish it, then I would basically have wasted most of my teenage years doing this thing. So I've been in this position where it has to be good. It has to live up to others' expectations, but more than anything, it has to live up to my own. And that's not to say that, you know, I'm putting unreasonable expectations on top of this, because, you know, we're not kids. We realize that there's a cost to spending too much time on things. But even so, when making this game, the biggest thing I'd ever done was a pixel art piece called Colossal Katamari, which was just Katamari and Shadow of the Colossus meshed together. And I thought, I have to make something that feels like that's something I can be known for that isn't that. And essentially, for the entirety of this development cycle, I don't feel like I've had a career. I don't feel like I've accomplished anything so far. All those mock-ups and all those things, they're fun, but technically, I mean, I haven't proven that I can do anything until I've released something that people enjoy. And and this is more of a personal thing, I suppose. I mentioned Mega Man X a little while ago. Specifically X1, when I got that game, that scene where Zero comes in and blasts that guy, and I'm thinking, wow, I can be as strong as that guy. That was something that changed my life, even as weird as that sounds, because when I played that, on one hand, I got the motivation to play something. I got the motivation to become a game designer. I started drawing because of that game. I think one of the first things that I sat down and really tried to design was Mega Man characters. So because of that scene, because of something I played and someone else put really hard work into, I became the person that I am now, and I strove to be better at something. And Owlboy, the reason it's taken so long, and because I'm so hard on myself and why I get so depressed all the time, is because if I don't make something that makes someone else feel like they can do better things, then why am I making this game? I want to give what I got from the games that I played as a child to someone else. And that's kind of a heavy burden.
Big time. But at the same time, it sounds like it's often the rocket fuel that pushes you forward. Many people would have just kind of quietly given up. You have put out a game. You've put out Savant. Why am I thinking it's Ascent? It's Ascent, right? Yeah.
We were considering doing Savant Descent, but no, we're not.
You put out a game. You're an incredible artist. You could just work commercial art and not have any of this pressure to self-generate and to take all this responsibility on yourself. You could put the responsibility on the people who just pay you to do beautiful artwork if you wanted. And yet you continue moving forward on this very treacherous, difficult path. And it sounds like it's because you truly want to give something to people that'll make their lives better.
Yeah, me and Joe had this discussion a couple of days ago, actually, because we were talking about how there's so many people that like to be comfortable, and that sounds like an insult, but it's it's a very natural thing. Most people want to be comfortable. They're okay with having a regular day job,
Hmm.
uh, getting the money they need, and then go home and then be comfortable, eat, have a car, have a nice apartment, drive around, that kind of thing,
Mm.
which is a perfectly good life, honestly.
Sure.
Um, but I can't live like that, and none of neither me or Joe can do that kind of a thing. We have this need constantly to work on stuff and to prove that we can do better than we did previously. Um, so whenever we do something in Owlboy, it's uh, just just 2 days ago actually, we had an enemy that we could have just said, it's fine. It's flying at you, and you shoot it, and it's gone. Now you got your challenge. But it wasn't good enough, and it wasn't something that made you think. It felt dumb. And if we're gonna leave it just dumb and not have something that feels like you did something, if we just have content for content's sake, then why are we making this game?
Mm.
So it's I don't think I could ever end up doing that kind of thing, because I started my career as a illustrator for an advertisement company, which was literally go to work every day, make something that was pretty much copied off someone else. I would literally get told, this looks good, copy it, and then put it in our ad. And I would do this every single day, sometimes even during the weekend, because we had deadlines constantly. Uh, and I have never been more unhappy in my entire life. So
I can see that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Isn't it so painful that so often the people with the creative power to work a job like that are the ones who suffer the most when they have to have that sort of worker bee living like a drone, just following orders, just copying, no creativity in that, just riskless plagiarism of other people's work. Huh.
well, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because uh, there are some people that works for. Some people like that kind of stability, and I'm not going to say here, hey, quit your job and do this kind of a thing. But it's when you, at least in my case, when you have the opportunity to just do what your passion is, uh, I feel like that's my spot, at least.
Mhm.
I can't speak for anyone else though.
Sure. Well, I'm glad that it is your spot, and I'm glad that there is more of a precedent now as opposed to when you were 19. But these days, Tom Happ immediately comes to mind. He did Axiom Verge. He had worked on some commercial games behind the scenes at big studios, started working on this game, just released it. Now he's got money. It's not a huge seller, but it sold well enough that he's going to be able to work on the next thing, and it's a critical success, and it's assumed sales will keep coming in. So it's I think he worked on that for 5 or 6 years, so he's in a similar space as you, and it finally came to fruition, and here he is. So for you, is there now like a deadline that you and Joe and the rest of DPAD have put, that like Owlboy, we're going to stop working on Owlboy in 2015 and then release in 2016 or something along those lines?
Yeah, that's we said this at GDC this year, that we want it out by 2015. Just
Really?
sometime this year it needs to be done, and we've set the deadline for it. But
Uh-huh.
if it happens or not, I don't know,
Mhm.
because we need to make sure that it's not some sort of botched product by the time it comes out.
Sure.
But even so, it should be somewhere within that time scale. If it doesn't, then it's close.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of scope, so we can know a little bit more what's under the hood, would you say it's going to be an experience similar to playing through a Mega Man X game, maybe one of the later ones, or is it going to be more Symphony of the Night in terms of scope, or somewhere in between?
The it seems so bizarre to think about when we're 3, 4, or 5 people working on this, but it is the size of your average Zelda game. So while we had a bit of focus on free roaming, all the dungeons are fairly linear, and it's I don't know if I can give out numbers, but I'm going to guess that you might have around 15 hours of play on this thing.
Wow, that's for this type of game. That's relatively long. They often don't design games of that type to be that long for fear it'll be repetitive. But knowing you, you've probably found multiple ways around that.
Well, the we changed out the mechanics quite a lot. We had one section where you could control a giant statue and smash things, but I think we deleted that.
But it's something you're keeping in mind, that you want to, like you said earlier, you don't want any part of this game to just be a dumb placeholder, a thing for the sake of being a thing. You want everything to evoke a feeling, it sounds like.
Yeah, but while that's said, it might turn out dumb. It might turn out that people don't find it fun at all. It might turn out that it's a long, drudging experience with no real feeling to it. Honestly, I have no idea. Because
Well, that's the thing. For you, I'd have to imagine that Owlboy is like, oh, I don't know, assessing your own hand or assessing your own face. It's something you look at so often that how can you look at it from a new person's perception and see how fresh and exciting it is at these shows? Hopefully you get to see it, that when people pick up Owlboy, within a few seconds they're stimulated and like excited, and then once they get into the mechanics and dig into it, it's very hard for them to put the game down. It's a really fun game you've been making.
well, the interesting thing is, I mentioned earlier that it's difficult for people to show these kinds of games at conventions because it's that sort of thing that you have to sit down and feel for yourself. Because when you have more arcadey type games, they work very well for show floors because then you have all these people around and you can kind of interact with each other. But for Owlboy, it is a bit of a learning curve, and it is a bit of a it takes a bit of time for people to get into it. But the interesting thing is that everyone has a different thing that they like about it. And I realize that this sounds like I'm just doing some marketing spiel because it's easy to kind of say, oh, everyone loves Owlboy. But honestly, though, every time we go to a convention, someone else points out something that they feel it either reminds them of, or that they point out something that I haven't even noticed. I mean, most people said, oh, I like the art, or this guy's walking animation is really charming or something. But it's really fun when I get people that so the main mechanic here is that you don't have a gun. You have people that are called gunners, and you carry them around, and they shoot for you. I remember specifically we had one girl that was playing the game, and whenever she would drop the guy and do something, she would always go, "Where's my friend? Where did I put him?" And back then we had a thing that where if you drop him into spikes, he teleports out and pops somewhere else. And we had tons of people just go, "Oh no, I killed him! I'm horrible!" And it's that sort of thing that you don't necessarily think about while you're developing it, because it's a mechanic. It's it's sort of this routine thing that you've had in it. And we had tons of experiences like that. People pointing out just tiny little weird things that we hadn't thought about, like how we accidentally made the gunner be afraid of vegetables last time we were at the TVC.
You accidentally made him, or you did it without thinking? You were just like, oh yeah, and he'll be afraid of vegetables. You put it in intentionally, or?
No, it was we had a new element because what I mentioned was that everyone was really caught up with these gunners, and they wanted their to take care of them and make sure they didn't get hurt. So what we did was we added a feature where uh, all gunners are afraid of enemies. So when an enemy is passing him by, they just kind of cower like this and go, "Oh shit, don't kill me." Uh, but the thing is, in the code, vegetables are labeled as enemies. So if you put him next to a vegetable, he'll be like, "Oh, don't kill me."
And did you decide to leave that in, or are you going to have some gunners be vegetable phobic, or?
You know, I really want to keep that in. Just having this guy just go, "Ah, carrots, no."
Well, there's so many irrational phobias, and why not carrots? That would make it feel more real to me. And what you're describing is you've made this thing that to you is an ongoing project where you see all the flaws in it, and you know what you want to be different about it, and you know what you want to work on. But for other people, this is just a real world that they get to jump into, and they have a real emotional experience with the characters in the game, and feel a real partnership with them. And I wonder if that was part of the design philosophy of Owlboy. We talked about Mega Man X1 and how the underlying theme of that game is weak as you may feel, as vulnerable as you may feel, if you persevere and move forward and learn new things and take on new challenges, you can become as powerful as your heroes. For Owlboy, it feels like the theme is things you may not feel like you're capable of doing alone. If you partner with the right people and truly collaborate with them and empathize with them and think of yourself as a whole that's greater than the sum of your parts, you're capable of a lot more, which I guess would speak to your partnership with your teammates at D-pad.
Yeah, actually, this is something we discovered a little ways into the project, because the way we design things is that we pick the gameplay mechanic. I make a world usually. I start out with just a world of things because I feel like the basis of all good stories, they're usually the same, but it's the world that makes them different. And then you experiment with gameplay and try to find the basic mechanics and find out what's fun and all that. And then you focus on the story and try to figure out what exactly is happening here. And we were going through just the starting scenarios of the game, and there is a core philosophy behind Owlboy that I won't talk about simply because it's supposed to be hidden.
Mm-hmm.
But we realize that this is the story about a guy that gets nothing. He is not a hero. He doesn't do the right things. He basically sucks at everything. But because he has friends with him, and because he has people that support him with things, that's why things work out. And this wasn't something that came to us very naturally. It wasn't because we had this whole thing where you could pick up people and all that. It was simply that as we were playing and as we had sort of made these characters in our heads, we hadn't even added any cutscenes yet. It just seemed like, yeah, this guy you're carrying, he is your best friend. I mean, why else would you be there? And this other guy that joined you, he must really like you if he's going to, blast people in the face for you all of a sudden. So it was it sounds so freaking cheesy, but I mean, Owlboy is the story of friendship.
It doesn't sound cheesy to me at all. And it's a friendship that, as Owlboy being mute, people don't take to him because he's the biggest, the strongest, the most charming, the most eloquent. He's not the alpha male of the group. They take to him for some other reason that's undefinable, and that's so often true of friendship. You don't know why you end up being wanting to be with the people that you want to be with. Maybe later you can analyze yourself and figure out, oh, that's why we fit together. But it's something you just feel and do. And in Owlboy, likewise, you pick up the controller you gain a friend, it feels right, and you do it, and before you know it, you're like screaming when you worry that they might have hit the spikes, and you feel this connection with them.
Yeah, this is something I've developed this idea after we figure out this main mechanic with Owlboy, and is that friends, as strange as it sounds, I think that friendship is the thing that could solve most of society's problems. I've thought in my head what I could do to improve the planet and all that, and it's occurred to me that if you have some sort of support unit, just other people around you, it doesn't even have to be family, because that doesn't always work out. If you have people around you that could act as a buffer or to talk to or something like that, then that helps you deal with a lot of things that you wouldn't normally. So ever since we came up with this thing for Owlboy, I realized that probably the games that we develop forward should have some sort of way for you to either connect with the people in the game or connect with other people. Because if we're going to do some good with our games, I'm not big on social change and that kind of a thing, but if you're gonna do something that's positive with game development, I could imagine helping people provide a support network for themselves and not some sort of pushy way. I think that could be a thing.
Yeah, to have the underlying philosophy be caring about somebody else and letting yourself be cared for is one of the things that is going to make your life better in a way that you may not realize. And at least in American culture, we're often pushed to just like get bigger, get better, get more money, push the other guy out of the way in order to get what you want. And most of the people I know who live like that, I know some very wealthy people who are afraid and kind of angry almost all the time because they've got ingrained in their heads, it's all about me, and everyone else is just either a tool to get what I want or someone.
I'm gonna have to run and get a power plug, it seems.
I could rant about that in a while.
I can still hear you though.
Oh, okay, good. I'm looking at the artwork behind you. It looks like a running person in green pants.
Oh yeah, that's one of my earliest paintings actually.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Is that a orange mech or a tank behind them?
That is I think it's a giant mutated dog actually.
Oh, okay, it's a little blurry from where I stand. And if I remember correctly, D-Pad Studios, you try to make games for your birthday or for various members of the studio's birthdays. Is that right?
Oh, we do that, yeah, just for fun.
So making games is this like overarching stress, and you want to be able to do it properly. But then, in order to wind down and relax, you make a game. Or
literally the only reason I want Owlboy to be done right now. I don't care about the money. The exposure is fine. I would like to make people's lives better, but mainly I just want to work more. I want to make more stuff.
You want to make a variety of things as opposed to having Owlboy be the thing on your back, kind of waiting to get finished. That's how it sounds. Can you tell us a little bit about the birthday games before I forget some of the ones that have come out?
Birthday games. Okay, so I remember. The first one we've ever done. It was a game that I made for my brother when he turned 16, I think. I just made a compilation of almost like WarioWare type games. One where he drives a scooter, another one where he was into politics then, so I made a sort of a rhythm game where you kind of answer political questions. And then he was really into Linux and hated Internet Explorer, so I had him fight Bill Gates with a giant penguin. So that was one thing.
Is that game available? It sounds great.
Actually, I think it would be fun to convert that, but no, it isn't. Let's see. The other one was Henrik and Joe made me one where I'm at the airport trying to get to my fiance and I'm punching everybody in the face.
That also sounds pretty good. Is it like a running and punching game, or is it a
It's
still?
basically just me scooting along the ground and then finding someone and punching them in the face. It's fantastic. And then we have the game that I want to expand on, which is Full Metal Picnic, which was this game I made for me and Henrik made a game for Joe's birthday where we just thought of all the things that Joe likes. So Joe likes Prinnies, he likes beef and burgers, and he likes stats. So naturally, we put him in a penguin mech where you shoot burgers and steak mechs, and then upgrade with gold. And then eventually, when you die, you stack all the burgers on top of each other to make just a giant beef stack.
This one, I think have I played that? That one people can check out, right? Or have I just watched video of it? It's all kind of
I think you watched the stream of that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that must have been it. It felt like I was playing it though. Top down mech shooter, kind of arena shooter.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, it looked really fun. And that was a year ago now, 2 years.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So all these games are almost available, but why do you think it is that you don't think, oh, well, I want to make money off of this one and this one and this one, so I better put them out there? There's like this undercurrent of you maybe not appreciating your own work as much as somebody like I would from the outside.
Yeah, there's sort of a double-edged sword on that. On one hand, if we put it out, then we're in the Savant Ascent position where, on one hand, we'll probably have to do, half a year's worth of conversions and all that, and marketing and all that stuff.
Mm.
And of course, you have people starting to worry, hey, aren't you working on Owlboy? Which we are. I've been working on it consistently for 7 years. Thank you very much.
My God. Well, what do you think when a game like Flappy Bird or something just comes out of nowhere, no marketing, and all of a sudden it's brought in however much money that brought in?
Well, that's the other thing, because the markets that you're pushing these games into are already ridiculously inflated.
Mm.
The main reason Flappy Bird and all of these games managed to get popular is, on one hand, pure coincidence,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it's so difficult. But on the other hand, was that they were one of the primary games that got jumped on the new Let's Play wave.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty convinced that the main form of marketing right now for games is to just be on some popular Let's Play, and that's where you get a lot of games that are made to be reactionary. I mean, when you have a game like Goat Simulator and that kind of a thing, it's really easy to play that and have people scream and joke around about it. But if you have a 30-hour JRPG where everyone is really serious, you're probably not going to have that same exposure on the Let's Play channel.
Sure. Five Nights at Freddy's is getting its own live-action movie now, I guess. I
heard.
Yeah, they've already made 3 of those, and it's basically just jump scare the game. It's got a pretty interesting lore behind it, actually, but it's not something like...
I've read all of it.
Oh, yeah? That's fine. Yeah, more power to that guy, absolutely. But on the same token, I would love to see something like Owlboy get its own live-action film before Five Nights at Freddy, personally.
If I wasn't sane, actually, no, I do have papers saying I'm insane. Now you mention it. No,
who wrote that paper?
No, seriously, I started going to a therapist when I was 10, and there was mandatory military duty in Norway when I turned 18, so my therapist wrote me a note saying that I was insane.
What a nice therapist, because it kept you out of the military, I'm guessing.
Well, yeah, I didn't have to do civil service either. If you're insane, you don't have to.
Sounds like a good perk. Yeah.
I wanted to mention though that, well, if I wasn't somewhat stable, I would love to do a full animated movie at some point, because I've already gotten the offer from Savant, and I just don't have time.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Five Nights at Freddy's, on one hand, it's a really interesting take on horror, but the thing I care most about is the fact that he's using frickin' multimedia fusion.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been using that thing for years. In fact, I toyed a bit around with it today.
Oh, really?
A horrible program, but it's the only program I can use because I can't frickin' program. So it's the only option I have. And the fact that people are making games in this thing, it's so frustrating because I've been trying for so long and it just doesn't happen.
Well, geez, I mean, there's so many things you can do that other people could only ever dream of doing. Designing a video game, making this beautiful artwork that you make. It would be, but it sounds like you've got a constant hunger for the capacity to do even more. That's how it sounds.
Oh yeah, I want to do an animated movie. I don't care what it is. I've said to myself so many times that when Owlboy is ready, I want to do a full animated trailer. Just I want to go full Miyazaki style on that.
Whoa.
Because I've been I mean I'm trained as an animator. I'm trained as a 3D artist. I've done tons of things. It's just that I don't have the time to do all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, making a game and making another game and making games for people's birthdays and doing an animated trailer and doing mock-ups and doing a new Breath of Fire and doing, I mean, it's only so much one human being can do. It sounds like if you had a superpower, it would be to just either slow time or clone yourself, maybe both.
I've been dreaming about both.
Not surprised. Not surprised. But back to what you're saying about Let's Plays. Let's Plays have been very helpful to games like Goat Simulator and Five Nights at Freddy's, but they've also been helpful to games like Shovel Knight and games of that nature. Has it given you even more optimism to see games like Shovel Knight do fairly well on Let's Plays and do fairly well in general? Because the Shovel Knight is, recent. Owlboy has been around for a long time, but games have kind of come out since Owlboy was first announced doing similar stuff that have ended up doing very well.
Yeah, the Shovel Knight is an optimistic one because it's a platformer that was done properly and had a polished feel throughout the entirety of it, which is not very common nowadays for indie games.
Mm-hmm.
Though, as an aside, please hire me as a pixel artist next time. I want to fix it so bad.
And by that, do you mean because it looks like an NES game, but Shovel Knight, a lot of pixel artists have told me frustrates them because you can tell it's not actually, the pixels don't line up perfectly and that sort of thing.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be, complete NES restrictions. No one's that insane, but it's more, it's just, I see tiny tweaks that I could do on all the art. And I feel like a jerk saying that because the people that I made have obviously put a lot of work into it.
Sure.
And some of the animations they've done for that look fantastic. But I'm sitting there going, if you ever make a sequel, I need to do something.
How often do you feel that way? Like when you play your average indie game made by a small team of animators, do you ever think like there's nothing I would have done to change that?
No.
I didn't think so. I'm imagining you playing Wario Land Shake It or something along those lines and feeling pretty much like, yeah, they did, well, more or less what I would have done, but
no, not at all.
That too? Mario Land Shake It, we won the pretty good.
Yeah, I'm so frustrated with that because I read some comments on that after I released the Wario Land thing, and people were saying that it looks so ugly. I wish it looked like Shake It.
Really?
And I was like, are you serious? Shake It had these giant fat outlines on everything. They didn't have any volume on any of the things. They lost all the things they had in Wario Land 3 and Wario Land 4, Wario Land 4 wasn't perfect, but it was pretty damn good. Like, I wish I could fix Shake It.
To make it so it has, as opposed to just looking like cell animation, not cell shading, but like just a flat colored 2D character moving around on a background, you would want to give it that lushness. It sounds like.
Yeah, and I mean, they wasted so many opportunities on that.
Really?
For example, what they did with have you ever seen the Virtual Boy one that they did?
Just screenshots. I've never played it or gotten too close
Well,
to it.
even that game, they have very limited processing power, but they managed to do scaling where you could jump into the background and everything, and they used parallax really effectively. And then in Wario Land Shake It, everything just looked like a cardboard cutout that they kind of dragged across screen.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and in the later levels, it seemed like they just hadn't put in backdrops. They used the same enemies throughout the entire thing. The challenge was about the same throughout. It was
Mm-hmm.
like everything lacked that character that they had in previous games. And like, I want to fix everything with that game.
I wish that you could. That would make me feel friggin' fantastic. I
Give me
enjoyed
the
that
ID.
game.
I'll do it today.
You would. I bet it's 5:16 where I am now. I'm sure by 5:16 tomorrow you would have a full fixed Wario Land Shake It for me if I could give it to you.
Well, honestly, what I've been trying really hard not to do right now is either make a full world mock-up of Breath of Fire, or do a sequel to Duck Hunt.
What? A sequel to Duck Hunt? What would you do with that?
Well, it was sort of a weird idea because I woke up one morning and I thought, what's the dumbest thing I can make a sequel to? And I thought, okay, how about Duck Hunt? Duck Hunt would be the dumbest thing. So I thought, how about you have sort of a flat perspective 3D thing where you walk through grass and you send your dog out to sniff out ducks for you. So you have kind of a trail path that he follows, and you follow behind him, and you have to kind of evade things like deer and bears and how are you going to say that, bears? And you have to sneak up on the ducks to actually catch them, and then you get the whole kind of shooting thing afterwards. So it would be sort of like more of an open duck hunt kind of a thing, but you actually have to find them before you shoot them. So yeah, I'm trying not to work on that right now.
It sounds awesome. Would you be able to, like, if you were to set these hard limits on yourself and decide, okay, I'm going to do one level of this Duck Hunt game, and I'm going to treat it like D-Pad Studios marketing. So I'm going to make one level of it. It's a fan game. It's free. An artist named Paper Beat Scissors, he just did a little King DDD Tamagotchi mock-up that I posted on Destructoid. People absolutely love it. Now everyone knows who he is, so it worked as a marketing standpoint. But it's not a big game. You just feed DDD and you clean up his poops, and then he dies, basically. So if you were, it's pretty good. You should check it out. It's got cute, simple little animations. If you were to make this Duck Hunt thing and follow your inspiration, that would end up getting on Reddit, on Kotaku.com, on Destructoid.com. It could end up blowing up pretty big.
Well, I suppose I could do that, but I mean, it could be something that we do as a weekend project. We do that every once in a while, but I think the main thing that would be difficult with that would be to hold it back once we're done with it.
That sounds like, in general, one of your struggles is, how do I not do something gigantic? How do I force myself to keep it relatively contained? And with Savant Ascent, you did it in 5 weeks, but then couldn't help but then spend X amount of months on it afterwards.
The idea was that we were going to have 3 levels, not just one, in the original game, and we set really hard limitations on ourselves. And I'm still sitting there thinking, I want to do the minecart level. I want to do the giant machine boss fight that we had originally planned. Spoilers. So there's we have tons of other levels there, and basically every day we have another person screaming either, why isn't Owlboy released, or why haven't you released a new expansion to Savant Ascent? And it's like, what do you want from me? We have to pick one. So it's a constant dilemma, I suppose.
Sure, but that's such a fun dilemma to have people constantly want more of what you're doing.
Well, that's a difficult point for us though, because being as small as we are, we hardly have time to do our own marketing or pay attention to the things that people write to us. Hell, we were going to do a podcast maybe 2 years ago, and we still haven't done it. Basically, every time we post something online, or every time we answer messages, that's maybe an hour out of our work schedule. So we don't have a lot of time for that kind of a thing. And we honestly have no idea how many people are excited about Owlboy. I realize it sounds like such a weird thing, but quite frankly, I get people that tell me that, oh, there's so many people waiting around for Owlboy, and I have to say, are you sure? Can you show it to me? Can you introduce me? I'd like to meet them, because there's people that post these things every once in a while, but you never really know the scale of it, because I mean, if the only way we could possibly figure that out is to send out some sort of petition to everyone. I honestly don't know how we would do that.
And then even then, there's a lot of people who would see the petition, say, oh yeah, I'm absolutely excited about Owlboy, but I'm in the middle of 3 things right now. I'm going to go sign that petition later, and they would forget. Or there's people that would just sign it for the sake of signing it. It's possible to know until it happens, but it is going to happen. And I forgot to ask, is Owlboy planned just for computers right now, or are you thinking you'd get it on console somehow as well?
Oof, that's the best thing in my Twitter feed right now.
Yeah.
These people coming in and saying, port this for my console right now. I want this for Vita and 3DS. Why aren't you doing this? Essentially, we are working mainly on the PC version right now, and then basically everything else after that.
Really? So you do want to put it on everything?
I want to put it on everything, except I don't want it on smart devices.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. I don't, simply because I don't think the controls would work. I think the game would be... It definitely wouldn't play right. People would be frustrated, and even if we did sell a lot, I feel like I would be cheating people, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. But 3DS, from what I'm told, pretty tough to code for, especially if you're not already starting in a language native to it. Then again, Renegade Kid, Jules Watcham, has told me, oh yeah, we can take a 360 game and put it on 3DS in like a couple of weeks. I don't know how the heck he does that. The whole coding thing's for me.
It depends on the 360 game. I mean, this thing is pretty big. If I could get it on 3DS, I would love it, simply because the market is so dedicated when you actually do get in.
Sure.
But 3DS would be a difficult one, simply because I don't know how I would do the split screen. But I would love to have it on it.
Sure.
Oh yeah. Did I ever answer that thing of you asked me about Shovel Knight?
No, I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. Not quite. Yeah. So back to that about Shovel Knight.
Yeah, no, what was your question again? It was, do you feel optimistic? That was
and the fact that Let's Players really took to it. Game Grumps took to it. Two Best Friends Play took to it. And then, as we're seeing, I think both of us are seeing, people look up to these Let's Players in ways that they don't necessarily look up to bloggers and journalists and whatnot anymore. They see the Let's Players as like, that guy's just like me. He's an everyman. He has the same interests as me. Whereas people in my position are more and more being seen as kind of like the way people see film critics. They don't go to read a film critic's take on the new Transformers. They want to know what their new friend thought of the new Transformers. They know film to take on.
So,
yeah,
I think there's definitely a space for doing more analytical critiques of games, and
Sure.
I feel like that's something that's been falling away recently. I
Mm.
remember what was it? I think it was Polygon that
Mhm.
recently started doing something that felt very much like Let's Plays, and it
Mhm.
just seemed like they wanted a piece of that market when they could really just do something really in depth and analytical, and it would work a lot better.
Yeah.
I feel like people are afraid of giving reviews right now because they can't figure out what the rating system is going to be.
Mm.
I personally, I want those really in-depth reviews again. I just
Mhm.
think they have to rethink how to do it.
Sure. I'll give you a sneak peek. Actually, I've been working on this with Destructoid reviews editor Chris Carter. We're revamping our review score system for next week, so it's more around the writer defining what their relationship was with the game, as opposed to approaching it like a product review, saying, "Oh, I found these bugs," or "I deem these graphics not graphics enough." You know, it needed more graphics. It's more about this is how me and the game interacted, and because of this unique relationship I had with this game, this is kind of a rating of how compatible I was with it, as opposed to trying to treat it like a thing. It's treating it like a relationship. I don't know. Maybe that'll be better.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised just how heavily influenced people are from these kinds of things.
Mm.
Um, I remember I don't exactly remember what game it was, but I remember Joe was looking at a game that he really wanted, and then he saw a review of it saying that it's not really that good, and then he immediately just brushed it off and didn't want it anymore. Uh,
Yeah, it
and
makes a big difference. People and they skip right to the score so often. Like we will be able to check not only what stories we wrote on Destructoid got the most clicks, but how long people stayed on the page. And we'll
yeah,
write a new review, and all of a sudden we get all this traffic. We get like 1 million hits in a day, but each of those hits stayed on the page for like literally 3 minutes, and it would take 10 minutes to read the review. So we know people just went scroll down. Oh, it's good, I'm going to go buy it, or it's bad, forget it, or you didn't like it, I'm mad at you for not liking it, write a quick comment, you're the worst reviewer ever because you don't have the same taste as me, and then they're out. Oops, sorry, I hit the microphone. Yeah. So it's absolutely true that, and I agree with what you're saying about Polygon as well. And at Destructoid, we take this stance. We don't want to try to chase the Let's Play audience because we're a big website. People know it. You go to the Nintendo eShop, you see our name there, and quotes from our reviews on the games. We're not going to take on this everyman market, so we don't want to even try. We're paid experts, and we're going to try to act like it and do as in-depth reviews as we can.
well, there's also the aspect of there's two things with Let's Plays that's kind of a problem to me.
Yeah.
On one hand, it's you're not selling, or what am I saying? You're not presenting a game when you're doing a Let's Play. You're presenting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, unless you're doing just a silent playthrough, you're still you're narrating it. You're talking about things. I mean, Game Grumps, they're not playing games. They're sharing their stories while they play
Mm-hmm.
games.
Sure.
That's what the appeal of the show is.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the thing that I think a lot of people don't think about is when you watch a playthrough of something, you lose that first impression, that carefully crafted moment you were supposed to have by yourself and feel those things uh, as you were playing it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're watching some video, I mean, I sometimes watch uh, arcade playthroughs simply because, I mean, the art is gorgeous and
Mm-hmm.
some of the concepts are really fun. But if you're playing an arcade game, what you're sitting there doing is, holy crap, I reached another screen. There's amazing art here. I need to punch this guy in the face or my quarter will be lost.
Right.
And you're not, you lose all of that when
Mhm.
when you're watching a playthrough of something.
Sure.
I mean, I used the example of a JRPG earlier. I think my brother had he has a bit of an extreme stance on it, but it's still valid that he doesn't want to play RPGs around other people, because then you just sit around and make fun of the haircuts and everything. I mean, you're supposed to take this in yourself.
Sure, yeah. There's something particular about the connection between you and the game and the space between you and the game where your imagination fills in the blanks. And that requires you having the controller in hand and you being the one who presses the button to make the screen scroll, as simple and small as that is. There's a huge difference between me pressing the button and playing Mother 3 or something and feeling like I'm there causing the conversation to move forward versus watching a Let's Play of it, which is very boring for me personally. And when other people fill in the space with their commentary, with very few exceptions, I'm like, that should be me having the relationship with the game, not you, Let's Play guy. Quiet down, Let's Play guy. I'm constantly thinking that. Yeah.
It was funny you mentioned filling in the gaps. That's one thing that I feel Police Quest did very well. I was a fun bit of trivia on that. I mean, I didn't always speak English. That was I learned to write and speak English from playing Police Quest.
Wow, seriously, and,
Yeah.
and you speak so well. And like we said before the show, I had no idea you were from Europe. I thought you were from Arkansas or something.
Jeg
Seemed
er
like
fra
a
veldig
regular-
høyt nord oppe i verden.
yeah. So from Police Quest, you learned English. That worked.
Oh yeah, I mean I'm still a champion of writing open door, and I think I learned how to write briefcase very early in my career. The interesting thing about that game, though, because only the first one had something that I felt I could connect with, and I think that was because it was slightly more advanced than your average Atari game. So you had a bunch of colors, but it was so low resolution that you had to sort of fill in the gaps with that game.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to use the example that those games and the King's Quest series and that kind of thing, it worked like a book, because on one hand, everything was so pixel that you imagine what this person was doing. You imagine what all the detail in this landscape. But at the same time, because you had that type interface, everything felt like it could be alive if you just typed the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot why you mentioned it. Oh yeah, interaction.
Sure.
And I feel like, I mean, say you watched a Let's Play of Police Quest, you wouldn't feel that openness. You wouldn't feel that you could type basically anything. If you typed "get naked," you wouldn't get the satisfaction of, landing yourself in jail and taking your underwear off. It was a
Yeah, absolutely. That's where the game happens. That's where the idea, the feeling, the thought, all of it happens. Is that space between. And we have to close the shows. We're a little over time. I had such a good time talking to you. But to sum up, for me, what you're doing with games, you're letting my mind have this space open. You're not going for straight realism. You're going for abstractions and a simplified iconic language, visual language, but you're adding so much love and detail to it that it feels like you're making it feel real before I even pick up the controller. When I look at your art, I'm just like, I'm already in. I already feel like I've dived into another place, and that only makes me want to interact with it even more. So thank you so much for doing the awesome stuff that you're doing, Simon. People can follow you on Twitter. You're on there. What are you called on there?
I am Snake Pixel.
Why are you called Snake Pixel on there? I forgot to ask.
Oh, okay. I'll try to keep this short. First forum I ever joined was a Mega Man forum, and I had to pick a character that I wanted to be me. So my favorite game at the time was Mega Man 3. So my two favorite characters were Magnet Man, and I eventually ended up going with Snake Man.
He's a cool man.
And then I ended up posting pixels, and people were too lazy to write Snake Man, so they wrote Snake. And of course, then people started confusing me with Solid Snake, so I had to go by Snake Pixel.
So thanks to Mega Man, Mega Man 3 to be specific. That's really cool. Oh, that reminds me, somebody made a intro for Mega Man 3 because that's one of the only NES Mega Man games that, like Mega Man 1 and 3, don't have like a little cinema. Someone just made a little cinema for it. I meant to post that today. I forgot.
Actually,
Yes.
that's not quite true.
Tell me more.
I have. They had to cut a lot of content from that game.
Oh, really?
And oh yeah, the Mega Man 3 was severely cut down. Did you know it was supposed to be about mining?
I know that I didn't realize it was supposed to be strictly about mining. It is about going to other planets and getting the minerals to build the giant robot and whatnot. But it was supposed to be strictly about mining before that.
Yeah, it was supposed to be about mining robots, and then they create this giant peace robot and everything. But while they were cutting it up so they could ship it out, there was some stuff that was still left. So you have this long cityscape kind of a thing, almost like in Mega Man 2. They just haven't implemented it. So there is an intro. It's just not functional.
Really? I had no idea. In the code, you can like hack it and find it?
Oh yeah. If you search for it, you should be able to find something.
I absolutely will do that. How do you like that? And Mega Man 3 is one of the bigger ones. That's the one where there's the 8 stages, but then you have to fight the dock robots afterwards.
Oh,
and on top of that, there's and so there was even more content. How interesting. So yes, okay. They can find out more stuff like that from you on Twitter at SnakePixel and D-Pad Studios. You can find out about your games there. That's just dpadstudios.com.
Yep.
All right, awesome. I'm at Trondots on Twitter. You can watch the show later on YouTube, youtube.com/SupHolmesShow. I think there's like 142 or 3 episodes we've done. We've been very lucky to continue. It's just a lot of episodes, and we're going to keep going into next year at least. I think we're 40 or something into our 100 episode run that we got from Kickstarter. I'm still sending out Kickstarter rewards. I think there's like 30 left. So thank you, everyone. I'm still going with that. There's a pile of t-shirts across the table for me right now that I'll send to you. You can also listen to the show on Libsyn and iTunes. And I think that's everything. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.